Hi, everybody, and welcome back. In the next set of videos, we're going to look and continue with the idea of pivot tables, but bring in pivot charts. So we can also make charts using similar features. So I'm back on the media log sheet, and I'm just going to go and scroll up and just make sure I've selected the table. So I'm just clicking on B4 to select the table, and I'm going to follow along and show you how to insert a pivot chart. So I'm going to go up to the Insert tab here, right at top, and then I'm going to go over to Pivot Chart instead. And then I'm just going to click the Pivot Chart feature. I do want to make sure that the table is selected correctly, right? So this table was called Media, which is correct. And then you can even have your chart go to a new workbook or to an existing workbook. We're going to follow along with your text, and they would like to use an existing worksheet, excuse me. And we're going to go ahead and tab into the location or just click into the location. And then I'm going to go to the sheet that I want to, and then select where it's going to go. All right, so here they want us to select follower history, and they want us to select cell B4 as the location for the corner of our pivot table. Now, when we create a pivot chart, it will also create a table to go with it automatically. So you'll see both of those coming up in just a second. I click OK, and then you can see it directs me to that followers history worksheet. It's hard to see, but back here is a pivot table that's going to get created as well. And then this is my pivot chart. And you can see the features look very similar to what we're used to. And again, I'm just going to follow the instructions in the book, but of course you can play around with the different headers that we have and compare different data depending on what information that you're looking for. So here they would like us to focus on the followers. So we're going to go ahead and drag that to our values box. And don't forget, remember, our values default to sum, but we can change this later on if we prefer to look at things like the average instead, for instance. We can go ahead and tweak that. We're going to drag the site to the legend piece. And legend makes sense here, right? Because that's how we're breaking it down. So we're breaking it down by site. You can see a little legend was created here on the right: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And then our main values are the total followers in each area. So that's where the sum values is coming in as the total or sum of the followers. For the x-axis, we want to break it down a little bit more than just the total. So let's do this by date. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the date category down into the axis. And you'll see now that I broke it down by a month here. And again, you still have the 3 different categories: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, we're still looking at the sum of the followers as our main feature. And if I'm staying on the same worksheet, I can just move this table by dragging and dropping it where I want to. And you can see that table was created behind here as well to go along with it. All right, so maybe I don't want to look at the total followers for each month. Maybe I'd like to look at the average instead. So I can go ahead and click the sum of followers up here, and I'm going to right click on that. And I'm going to go to Value Field Settings, and that will allow me to change the formula. Again, it always defaults to sum, but perhaps I want to look at the average here, and I can go ahead and change that to average. And of course, I could give it a custom name if I wanted to as well. Average of followers sounds good to me, so I'm just going to leave that and click OK. And then now you can see our data adjusted here to get the average instead. If you want to go ahead and change how that data is displayed, so you can see here on the left, you are going out a few decimal places. It kind of varies depending on how wide the column is, what you can see. But if I go back into Value Field Settings, don't forget, by clicking Number Format here, you can also change how that data is displayed as well. So if I go to number, I can, let's say, delete those decimal places if I don't find them helpful. I can also use the thousand separator. And then again, click OK. And you can see that updated in the background on the table as well. And it just made the data a little bit probably easier to read in this particular case. Now, Excel will default to a column chart when using pivot charts here. But we can change the type of chart. So we are restricted a little bit on the types of charts that we can use. So with the pivot feature, we can create column, line, pie, bar, area, surface, or radar chart types, or combinations using those same types. If you wanted to do a different type of chart, what you would do is you would still create your pivot table first, and then you could just make a chart based off the pivot table more manually like we've done in the past. So there's a way to get other kinds of charts, but it wouldn't be in the pivot chart feature. It would be just using a regular, inserting a regular chart. So here I'm going to go ahead and change the design here. So I have my chart selected. And up here, I can see all sorts of features that you can tweak for PivotChart Analyze, and I can also go to Design. So I can change the chart type over here. And maybe I prefer a line graph instead. So I can go ahead and select, my line graph there and click OK, and it will change my display to a line graph. And of course, you can also change the different styles, right? So if you want to have points displayed for the different months, you can. This one I think is too confusing, but this one has data in it as well. This one has, again, slightly different look to it, and so on. So you have some basic designs here that are kind of already created for you that you can use, but you don't have to. The other thing too, if you choose one of these and you decide later on you don't want it, you want something simpler, you can always go to quick layout, and these are your more basic line charts here as well. So you can always go back and change your style. I'm just going to go with the original first one here. You can also tweak, as we know, so just like before, if you click this little plus symbol, those are your chart elements, and you can go in here and you can edit what you want. So right now we do have axes titles, chart titles, so I would probably want to update my different titles here. We do have grid lines. Remember, if you click the arrow on the right, you can edit those. So maybe we want to also display a vertical axis, we could do that. Or for our legend here, I want a legend, but maybe I want it on the bottom, right? So I can click those different features here. I don't really like it on the left at all. Top's kind of nice, right is nice, you can do bottom, etc. So you can tweak where that legend goes. And of course, you can also come here and change your titles and things too. So let's not move the title. Let's go click in here and change it. So we can call this followers by month. All right, and then again, you can give titles here to your axes as well. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and delete the axes titles, and you guys can, work on those and fill those in if you find them helpful. Here, this one's pretty straightforward: followers by month, average followers, and then the months are already labeled as well. All right, another thing I do want to show you here. If you go back to PivotChart Analyze, you'll see how you have all these different buttons on, right? So months, states, site, etc., right? So if you select them, you could change what you want displayed here. So perhaps you only want to display Facebook. I could deselect Instagram and Twitter and click OK, and my chart will update appropriately. So you do have all those filter features that you can use here. And if you don't want them displayed, this field button over here can be clicked. And you can click them off. So now they're no longer viewable. Or again, you can click them back on if you want them to be able to be used or off as well. So that will allow you to also filter your data as you go through. So one last thing I want to show you guys in this particular video, and we'll still do a few more videos on pivot charts, is how to move your pivot chart. So one thing I can do is, first of all, you may want to rename your pivot table. So the background here, you do have your pivot table. So I'm just going to select the corner of that pivot table here. You'll see the top change to pivot table analyze instead. And I can go in here and change the name of this pivot table if I want to. And we're going to call it followers by month pivot. So I'm just going to rename my table there. And then I can go back and select my chart, and you'll see it'll switch back to PivotChart Analyze. And if I select in there, right, you'll see this feature of Move Chart. So if you're just moving it within the same worksheet, you can literally just, drag it wherever you want to. It's pretty easy to just move it around by holding down your mouse or holding down your keypad. But if you want to move it to a different sheet, then we could use Move Chart. And you can either create a new sheet if you want to, or we can send it to a sheet that's already created. So here they would like us to send it to the dashboard. I click OK. And then you'll notice that it did go to the dashboard. And it just kind of sticks it somewhere in there. So let's see, your book would like us to put it in cells B24 through H36. So let's kind of move this over a little bit first here. And I'm just doing drag and drop. I think it's just a little easier. So I'm now in column B, and I'm going to move this down to, oops, let's not move my legend. I'm going to move my whole chart down and have it start in cell B24. So let's see. All right, now they do want us to resize it as well because it's overlapping here. So we're going to end it in column H. So I can just click those corners and resize it as I like. And again, you can do this in any worksheet. And we want it to go down to row 36. So I'm just going to make this a little shorter there. And again, if we're done with those field buttons, we can click them off. It obviously just makes it a little bit easier to read here. I'm going to fix my legend because I had moved it earlier and kind of bring this down. I'm going to make it a little bit longer. There we go. I like that much better. So again, you can come in here and you can do, the usual tweaking as well. I don't really like that my title is being blocked there, so I would maybe want to fix that. And then I can tweak my chart. So here's our pivot chart. And again, if you want to filter it, just bring those field buttons back on and you can filter it as well. Maybe you only want to display certain months or certain of the sites, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can choose one or just some of them to display, and you can still change those filters on and off.